It's 10 o'clock, September 11th. We're going to start the meeting off for policy. Do we have anybody on Zoom? Okay. We'll call the order. The first discussion we have is under B, policy 246 for school wellness.
Elizabeth, you asked a question about that relevant to our vending machines. And so we looked into policy 246, and there is a paragraph in our current policy which says that we have to follow the healthy snacks rules in all of our vending machines for students. So I just wanted to make sure that you saw that was, I think, a response to your question about do we have policy and are we following it? Yes, we are following it. I checked with food service. So
thank you. I appreciate that. And Chair.
Speak into your mic.
Oh, Lord, I'm so sorry. Yes, that was probably the last meeting. So sorry, folks. Sorry. Thank you, Chair Chris, for letting me know that. Okay, in also regards to the wellness, if I may make an additional comment. Thank you. One thing that was briefly discussed was I had handed out some information from anywhere from universities to local school districts on their wellness policy. And PSBA does have a draft. All of the links, or I should say 95% of the links are different. Some of the text is different. They give us more options. So this is what I want the committee to consider. The wellness committee has options on who can be on their committee. And I don't know anything about the committee. I've never been to a advisory committee meeting. I know Tracy from our committee had stated she's been on it, quote, I think she said forever. So be that as it may, it states in here that, you know, letting them review this would be due diligence, I guess. So this is what I'm thinking. What do you folks think about this? Let the wellness committee meet whenever they do meet. I don't even know when that is. And let them review this policy, the draft policy. And of course they can look at the old policy, the current policy. And then if they have any comments, concerns, if they want to add or delete anything, and then they can read all the links. So that's sort of where I am right now, noting that there is a draft out there to get their input. And then if they do meet, since I've done so much research on this, it does say that more than one school board member can attend. I would like for them to consider allowing me to attend. So that's where I am sort of at right now. So again, I don't know anything about this wellness committee or who's on it or how often they meet or but that's my, any comments or any suggestions?
Is there something that you want changed from the policy we have now?
Well,
which is 246.
Okay, well, I hate to say me, because they've given in the new draft, there is links have changed. Okay, when you link into it, it's a different legislative policy. Okay, so that in itself is, you know, one thing. But I did write, I mean, I did, here it is. Here's my draft edition of the policy with all my green questions and highlights. And I'm in no position to comment without the wellness committee. But I do feel that given the fact that we have in-house food services, we have more local control, they'll have probably very key insights. So that in itself is huge. And given the fact that research, and I'm sure the wellness committee knows this, research, especially recently, you hear about the gut biome and a diet. Okay, it's been linked actually to mental illness. Okay, so that's why I think of all times this is critically important that they get a chance, at least if they want to, before we even remotely try to speak for them.
Dr. Redmond, Who is on our wellness committee?
I'm not sure, actually. It's one of the areas where I haven't really done much
Okay.
investigation.
We got plenty of time,
Can
so.
I ask this?
Can I refer to
Sure.
the team here?
I believe it's led by the food services group, but I know
Right.
there are also teachers, like our health and PE department leader is part of that committee. And he is a really active member of that. I do believe that they put out every year for teacher volunteers to be on that committee. And I think that changes every year, the level of participation. But I do know our health and PE department has a very active role in that committee as well.
Well, let me ask this. Elizabeth, have you read our policy 246? Have you gone through it?
246?
That's our current wellness.
Oh, yes, no, I have. I have the draft policy here with all my highlights and changes and comments. And then I have the current policy here. with all of
Okay,
my
let me ask this.
highlights. Ugh.
Would any of you folks have a problem if she asked her questions, wrote them in an email to somebody on that committee?
Yeah, I think if you were to, maybe you and I can meet after this and I can get
Sure,
basically a copy of, if you don't mind, the stuff you have there. And then
absolutely.
I'll meet with the.
Then we
wellness
can ask
committee
it and
leadership and
go
we'll
from
move
there.
forward with that.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Next one on the agenda is number 2, policy 006. BOG publish, notify board meetings and agendas.
The reason this policy came up is I was doing my policy review, just kind of stepping through all of our policies. I noticed that what we had on our website was a little confusing. There was both the draft policy and what looked like it was kind of had been changed, but then it didn't have an adoption date. And so then I had Christine look back at the minutes, and while PSBA has a record that the policy was submitted to them, we don't have in our minutes when it was adopted.
You're absolutely
back in
correct.
2021.
Right.
Good catch.
So we just want to correct that. And my thinking is that we should go forward with the recommendations from the policy work that was done a couple of years ago on this policy, the 006 BOG 0, and just go through the formal process of adopting what the board had essentially decided on, but we just didn't get it in the minutes.
The only question I have on it is on page 5.
Page 5 of which one? I have 3 different copies here. The original, the one on board docs, and then the one in our policy. So I have 3 different editions in front of me. I don't know how to
I have
designate.
printed off the one that is in board docs.
Okay. This is this one, I guess. This one.
Okay.
On page 5, down at the bottom, under agenda preparation. It's marked the superintendent with the board secretary is marked.
Mhm.
Will carefully prepare the agenda.
Yep.
I think the board president needs to be involved in that.
That's what our policy states, actually.
And that's what has
Right.
been practiced. Again, this was just a reflection of what was done in 2021.
Sure.
If I had to redo that and input my voice into that, I would say absolutely the board president should be part of that agenda preparation.
Yeah, so
Let's check that box.
let's check that box.
Check box, board president.
And just for clarification on the committees, I think the chairman of each
What-
committee should be involved in the agenda also.
What page are you on? I'm so sorry.
Page 5. You wanted me to mark these, right, Christine?
Yes, please.
Okay. Board secretary.
Yeah, that's the question I had too, is to make sure that before this goes anywhere, that it definitely already coordinates with what we have. And if we have to change the 000 to coordinate with this or vice versa, that means that the 00, do we have to make sure that the 000
You mean 006?
0006, yes, thank you very much, Dr. Redmond, absolutely coordinates with this, because I was on the policy committee at that time, and please don't quote me on this. But I think think they took it to first, all right, I'd hate to even guess, but the only thing I know for sure is it went back to PSBA without the solicitor looking at it first to get their comments, which I guess they did come back to us. I don't know if the solicitor ever looked at it or if he needs to, because technically this is a board operational guideline. This is not a policy. This is a guideline. And policy always goes, of course, above a guideline. And guidelines have very specific, things in them that they're not really, quote, the law, but they're a guideline. So be that as it may, the only thing I personally care about right now is obviously the first thing that you change, so it coordinates with our policy. And the other one is, we never discussed this as a policy committee meeting back then. I don't know if this is causing any type of, I'm not going to use a conflict. I would say, can we do better or should we do better? Whenever we have a policy, we want to keep it adaptable and open. So depending on what's going on at the moment, there's still some flexibility so everyone can keep operating efficiently. But on the flip side of the coin, I don't want to see our board secretary left in a position where she has to know, like each time, like on page 1 is a perfect example. And I honestly don't remember why we did it this way or why it was even stated this way. For an example, under newspaper publication, it says, first sentence, second line, board secretary or designee, which means that each time that occurs, the designee and the board secretary have to coordinate again and again and again. Did you do it? Did you do it? Did you do it? Would it be too much to do if it was just one entity? That way, there's one entity instead of multiple possible eyes on this. And I want to defer to what you feel is best. Do you want to be the sole person, or do you want somebody else that might also do it? What's best for you? And if you want to think about it, that's fine. This is not a critical, this is not a critical thing. If you want times to think, please.
So Christina, as the board secretary, does the notification. Unless, and this has come up before you came into the office, it has come up when the board secretary wasn't available. And so we had to have a designee do it. So the default person is always going to be the board secretary, but we need to have room in our policy in case that person isn't there, and then it would go to a designee.
Okay, could we say prime or something in there? So it's just very clear that the prime person or the number one designee, or however you feel comfortable wording that, just so in the future, do you like it the way it is? And you don't have to answer for this public meeting. You don't. But if you'd like to talk about it with the superintendent or just leave it as is, I'm just asking you.
I think it's worked this way.
Okay, fair enough. I just needed to hear a voice. Thank you. Okay.
I think that everything you have highlighted on the computer page is right. We just need to highlight the board president, and we need to have a slot in there that says the committee chair will also be part of the agenda making.
Does this policy address committees?
Off and on it touches on it, but not a lot.
I did highlight that somewhere.
Because down
Here
on
it
the
is,
bottom of page 3, it says committee meetings.
Yep, 3 of 2.
Yeah. I don't know why it's page 3 of 2, but
Yeah, the page
that was a
numbers
little messed
are,
up.
yeah, don't worry
So
about that right now.
Christine had talked to the folks at PSBA, and they recognize there are some changes that need to be made to clean up some of those kind of clerical errors.
I think that that should be marked in that way. And I know that you guys were recommending the 3 days, and I'm okay with that.
I think that's helpful for them.
Yeah.
There's so much going on. I mean, unless there's an emergency, whatever, that's different.
But that was the only other thing that
Would you make a note on your copy there
I did.
about including language to
For the
have
committee
the
chair.
committee chair
Yeah,
and the superintendent work on the agenda?
yeah.
That
Thank
would be
you.
great. Yeah,
You
that would
good with
be,
that, Christine?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions on that
no, that's
by
super
anybody?
terrific.
Okay. Next one down, under C for the silical review, policy 319. Any questions on that?
Okay, may I, Chair Chris?
Sure.
Thank you. There's a new policy, 317.1. Okay,
That's not listed on our list here.
right.
We need to stick just to the list pretty much.
Right, because it says here, I wrote a note here to myself. Add to agenda since policy 320 is being reviewed. And there's a reason why. Oh my goodness. Okay, that was it. Okay. Oh. Nothing like 4:30 in the morning. Okay. In the one we're reviewing, policy 319, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And where did I write that? C1, where is it? Somehow this policy relates to policy 320, and I'm trying to. Okay, please disregard what I said. I need to review my own notes so I don't take up too much time here.
Well, the 319 and 320 are even 321 are all kind of the same language. And I really don't see a problem with any of them.
Okay. Volume, okay, oh, that was it. Thank you. Thank you for helping me focus here. Okay, there is instead of looking at policy 320, there is a new policy. If we go into drafts, let me just make sure so I don't give out confusing information. Policy 320. Okay. Right. That was it. Okay, now I've got it. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate it.
Let's
All right.
go.
320, in the legal section, the link number 2. The link number 2 under item number 4 is policy 317. Okay, now that's the old policy, the current policy. Now in the drafts, there is policy 317.1, volume 4, 2024. So if we're going to review this one, or we can, if you want to table it until next time, instead of reviewing the one with the current old policy link of policy 317, the new draft policy, which coordinates with this, is in the draft section, not on the agenda today. Does that make sense?
So did we look at 317.1 in the last policy committee where we did some cyclical review? I think 317.1 was in that list of things. Is that right?
We did not.
No, it's still in the drafts right now, under PSBA drafts.
We
Or
didn't get to it. It's
I wanna,
October, so-
it's in October. It's in the October meeting.
I wanna make a note to you. On all 3 of these policies. At the bottom of it, it has the link 1.24p.s.510. That link has nothing to do with what we're talking about. That link is all back to 510, is about school safety and monitoring. It has nothing to do with what we have.
So I'll have to get that from PSBA again, because those are, they own all of the links in the
Yeah.
site for that. So there'll be another, we'll just ask them to clean that up.
Yeah,
Should we table this?
they have actually have those highlighted on so many things. Has nothing to do with school monitoring for safety. So I don't think that we can even do anything on that except alert them that they got a mistake.
Well, I think we can adopt the wording of the policy and ask, and
Oh,
by
yeah.
the time it goes back through, so if we just move ahead with the cyclical review, like the
I have
text
no
in the
problem
policy-
with these 3.
Yeah, and then just alert PSBA that these links lead to something that doesn't seem to have a connection to the policy itself.
Yeah, because it's on a lot of them that we're going over today.
Okay, well, if we do that, not to sound too detail oriented, but if we do that, and then next month we bring up policy 317.1, then the current policy of 320 has to be updated for the link number 2 to read policy 317.1. So what I'm saying is, just hold this one until next month with the understanding that we could also bring forward policy 317.1. And then also make sure that, so they're all coordinated at the same time. Otherwise, we're gonna have to redo this one to update it once we adopt 317.1.
I'd
So,
have to go back in and look at 317.1.
right, it's a policies draft. Right, so that's what I'm thinking, maybe just, if the committee's okay, just postpone this one until next month, and so they're both on the agenda at the same time.
Just to be clear, so I'm having trouble following all the things. So which one would you like to hold until next month?
Well, 320, since link number 2 says policy 317. But then when we go to review and recommend the new 317.1, then this link will have to coordinate with the new 317.1 that's in drafts right now. So if they're done at the same time, they can all be done at the same
Didn't we
time.
already do 317?
No, that's on next month.
Okay,
Since last reviewed on
317.1.
On August 14th.
all right.
Here, maybe if I just show you. It's, I know
It's okay.
convoluted. Here, where's your 320?
Right there. I can
Okay.
see where it is.
This. So what I'm
Yeah.
saying is there's a new one. There's a new one, new policy for that coming up next month.
Okay,
So that link number, I'm sorry, I'm speaking away. So the link number 2 is actually going to have to be updated to represent 317.1.
Maybe there was a 317.
that's what I thought.
Yeah, but this is a 317.1. I'm sorry. Maybe
Yes.
I'm wrong.
Yes, that's well put. Yeah, if you look at our regular policies that are active. If you look at policies that are active, there is a 317, okay? But the one that will be talked about next month will, if the group recommends and it goes to first read, it will, 317 you currently see are gonna go into retired. And 317.1 are gonna be active, which is gonna take 2 months, but, or less, I don't know. It's no big deal, it's just saving maybe a little redundant work, that's all.
Let me look at 317.
If I had a whiteboard, I guess I could.
Conduct disciplinary.
But if you, Dr. Redmond, if you feel this is a critical one that you want to get past ASAP, we can always just come back and do the second step. So,
We did review 317, regular 317.
mhm,
We did not review 317.1 for our notes.
right, thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So then 320 that references
317.
317,
Exactly.
why do we, if it's supposed to reference 317, it should be fine. 317.1 is a different policy and 317 doesn't, we're not abandoning or retiring that one to my knowledge.
And there's no PSBA recommendations for updates to 317.1.
Okay,
Right,
well, that
yeah.
clarifies it. Okay,
And
thank
that-
you, because I was just wondering, sometimes they combine
Yeah.
things and they put all the same information
Yeah,
into
Right.
one.
Yeah, because they're different. So the
Right.
317 conduct and disciplinary procedures is one thing. 317.1 is educator misconduct.
It's just an
Exactly.
extension of the 317. Okay,
So I think the
So-
link would still be valid.
Yeah.
yeah,
think it's
because it's
like-
just an expression of an expansion.
Right. So I'm gonna say
Thank
that
you.
we move 319, 320, 321, good to go.
Okay,
Oh, just one thing on 320, I'm so sorry, number C2. It's
Yeah.
it's just a noun that we always try to clean up. Under fourth paragraph, I guess, we always remove he, she, or she, he,
In 320?
yes. Just a noun update, that's all.
Seeing that.
These little nouns. That's all. That's just something we've always changed.
Changed, okay.
They.
It
or-
says
Oh,
S
yes.
slash
Number
C.
one.
Yep, and then number one, okay.
Yeah, just for consistency, that's all.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, so, and no, we could just, that's
Yeah.
it doesn't change the content of the policy. We can change it
Right.
without having.
Yeah.
to-
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Policy 322 gifts.
Wait, is that the one we're on next?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question on that.
Okay,
Same thing on that one, Christine, the PS 510 is about safety. That's another one that they need to be told. Yes. Under delegation of responsibility, it says the superintendent or designee may approve acts of generosity to individual district employees in unusual situations.
I don't know what that's.
I don't know if that's good protecting you because that could actually lay off that,
I don't know why it's in there.
yeah.
I have no idea.
I don't
I don't remember.
understand it at all because you can approve acts of generosity to individual employees. Somebody could scream that's favoritism.
Well,
sure. And that's why I'm pretty circumspect about doing that kind of thing.
does it need to be in there?
I don't even think it needs to be there. I think the top part of it, there should be no gifts accepted by an administrator or anybody else for all that goes. It says if it is the policy of the board, staff members not accept gifts of significant value as determined by the supervisor, but then down below it changes that and says, if you feel they can, they can.
It does put you in an awkward position, and I don't know if you want to be put in
Yeah,
that
I-
awkward position.
Put in a lot of awkward positions.
I
So,
think
mean, that
to-
doesn't bother
I
me, but
think
it's the
that
board's
should
policy,
be-
So, I mean, it's whatever you want.
I just think that should be eliminated, just for the fact that it takes the brunt of it off of you.
So then, okay, if you wouldn't mind, do you have a copy of the policy?
Yeah,
Would you just line it out
sure.
and then we'll take that?
Do you want me to highlight it or just line it out?
Probably both, just to make sure we see it.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine why PSBA, if it was maybe it was originally in there, but I can't go.
Yeah,
by that.
I think
Not for that. long.
that lines up a target on you, because for somebody to say, well, you did this for them, but not for me, and I think it can just create more conflict.
It is free firewood. No doubt about that.
Okay. That one needs to go to you. I'm having trouble keeping who's what pile here. Next one, personnel files under policy 324. I don't have any issues with that. Anybody else? We good with it? Okay.
Was there any concerns or anything we should know about? Okay, okay.
No.
All right, good.
So these are cyclical reviews. These aren't things that PSBA is changing. It's something that already sits in our policy.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
we're just going through the process of putting our eyes on all the policies.
Yep, that's why I looked at a couple of them and I did have some things like the gifts. Policy 325, dressing grooming. Any issues with that?
Chair, I'd like to ask Megan a question.
Sure.
Megan, is there anything that we can help you folks with? If there's anything that the principals or the assistant principal or super, anything at all that will help make this stronger for you folks, or do you feel it's strong enough, or? Because I understand this topic has come up a couple times in different situations. But if there is ever anything, you, please.
I don't know that anything needs to be stronger in the wording of the policy.
Okay,
I think
Mhm.
that it's probably fine as is.
okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I think that it does align with what is in our faculty handbooks.
Okay,
And so I think that's the important part, is that there's clarity between the policy and the teacher handbooks that are given to staff each year.
okay, great.
So,
Whatever, yeah, whatever makes it best for you folks, okay? Thank you.
326, complaint process. I did not see anything in there that alarmed me.
Fortunately, Chair.
Go
Chair
ahead,
Chris,
Elizabeth.
I wrote notes on this one too. I don't know why I found this, and I don't want to be convoluted. I don't want to hold up the process. But I saw in another school district, a Pennsylvania school district, that they recently they have policy 315. I guess there's a new one, a new policy 315, which I could not find in the drafts. I'll be honest with you. But this is what a school district did in Pennsylvania very recently. And I don't know why. They have policy 315 will replace policy 319, 322, and 326. AR 315 replaces AR 322. Now, I have no idea why this school district did that, but be that as it may, would it be too onerous to ask PSBA? Will 326, do they recommend replacing it with 315? Or I think they did a combination.
What's
So-
the, out of curiosity, what's the adoption date on that?
I think it was 2022. In a meta search for policy 326, it just popped right up. Don't ask me the school district, but I'm just putting that out there. I might want to hold this up.
Well, we don't have to follow some other school district. If we have our own policy in place
Sure.
and there's no recommendations of changing here, I don't see a problem.
Okay, well, I just want to let you know what I found. It's probably irrelevant. So be that as it may, I don't know why they did that combination, but I did, under guidelines, the third section, we just have that noun thing again, he, she. No big deal.
Okay,
Sure.
So I'm just scanning over the PSBA recommended policies for thank you.
I don't know
For-
why the school district did
For
that. I have no
twenty
idea.
twenty-two, and I'm not seeing a recommendation on any of the 300 policies from 2022 from PSBA.
That's why, again, it might just be an internal thing they decided to combine, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. Just not important, just FYI.
all right. Next one is policy 328, comprehension plan salary schedules. I do have a question on that. Down under delegation of responsibility. It says implementation of the administrative compensation plan, individual contracts, collective bargaining agreements, board resolutions. I don't think that you as a superintendent should be involved in individual contracts, and that I think that wording needs to go to personnel committee.
So this is the way I read that line is that it's a reflection of my job is to implement the policy that the board decides on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially what that line is saying is you all sign off on contracts and all that sort of thing. It's my job with my team and all that sort of thing to make sure that we're following the language and all
I
of the
see.
things that the board has adopted.
I can see where your confusion came in, Chris.
I-
It's the key verb at the beginning is implementation. It doesn't say develop or negotiate, or I can see, thank you, Dr. Redmond. I can see how that first word, he's only or not he,
Yeah,
the
the
superintendent's.
implementation. I just want to make sure that it's not saying, okay, you write individual contracts.
That's not what it says.
and
They're already
When you go back up to
implement
the,
it.
They're already
the authority,
approved.
when you go up the first sentence under authority, that
Yeah,
clarifies the board shall approve compensation plans, individual contracts.
okay.
salaries,
That's
schedules,
why
and
I
then
was like, there's a
delegation.
difference there.
Yeah,
falls.
I assume you'd want him to implement, because if you approved it and they're not following it, he's gonna need to come down and say, the
Right.
board approved this contract.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
tricky. Sometimes the verbs,
Right. Yeah, oh, yeah, it's just.
it does happen. I've done it
Yeah.
quite a few times.
Okay. Policy 330 overtime. I didn't see any issues with that.
I'm so sorry, what, 320?
Over
333, 330.
The
Um,
overtime, I don't see a problem with that.
Has there ever been an instance where it is I mean, is there anything that you need tightening up, or do you feel that it's,
I think it's pretty clear if you work over 40 hours, you're on overtime.
right?
And this is essentially.
Except you guys that are on salary.
Right.
That's,
Yeah.
So this is essentially, we're following the law.
right.
Yep.
Exactly.
That's
I
great.
mean, if you want to change it to say that.
Oh, yeah,
on
we'll
salary,
include,
because
yes,
we're-
salaried employees and directors, and
Did I hear that?
we'll add school board members too, okay? So we'll just make a whole pack. And that's, I'm kidding, folks, kidding.
I think that's good to go, Christine.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
The next one, policy 331, job-related expenses. This policy talks about travel expenses and not.
Mhm.
And due to the discussion you and I had on this, I think that there needs to be something in there to protect us in the future. The past is the past, nothing you can do to change it. But going forward, there needs to be something in there that says about board members don't get mileage to come to meetings.
Oh, well, that's, okay. Okay.
So, I think ultimately the policy is up to the policy committee recommending to the board.
Right,
I think the legal opinion that we have
right.
protects the district. Now that we have that opinion, we can follow that recommendation. And I don't think it's necessary to put it in the policy now that we have this legal opinion that kind of
Okay.
clarifies that point.
Then with that said, then I'd ask you to put out a email to all the board members so that they know that.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be helpful, because I'll be honest with you, I see Chris's point. Even though I'm not sure where would be the appropriate place to put it. I'm assuming somewhere in the 000s. But it is from, moving forward, board members will change, staff will change, HR will change, superintendents will change. Blah, 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 blah. And they're gonna get locked up back in the same situation because it doesn't specifically say it anywhere. Now, it says it in the legislation.
Right.
Yeah, I think we can only get gifts that are worth $5 or something. But anywho, it would be very helpful moving forward if Chair Chris, if you want to delegate, direct whomever to possibly find the appropriate place to put it in the policies, so anyone can see and find it without being placed in a similar situation. What do you think of that?
Well, if he is going to send out a letter,
Okay,
I think that'll suffice.
okay,
Because if it ever came back up, we can always produce a letter and say, hey, this isn't supposed to happen. And that's only regarding coming to meetings. Correct.
well, what if a school board member, I don't remember this
If
training.
a school board member goes to a training or something else where like Randy and I
Right.
went down to Miles.
Sure, now that's legit. Mhm,
I'm
yeah,
talking from home to the meeting and back. That's
Okay.
it.
What, just out of
Cause
curiosity,
it's been a practice in the past that people were turning in mileage.
because they didn't know any better. Honest
Right.
mistake.
Well, it was allowed, and I asked Dr. Redmond about it. And we decided to go from this day forward. That's something that doesn't happen, because there's nothing in the policies about it.
Okay,
That's all.
okay.
All
Okay,
right,
so this is 331. The only one I did have a note, where is it? Oh, under guidelines, paragraph 2. Use of personal vehicle for approved purposes is reimbursed with the rate per mile approved by the board. I don't ever remember in the last 3 years where we've actually approved.
it goes by the federal rate.
Well,
every
that's
year.
what I'm saying. Can we just get rid of the board so we don't forget to do it? Can we just say federal mileage rate, current federal
rate of
mileage
the-
rate? Or however it is you word it.
Yeah, the rate of the current.
Current federal mileage reimbursement rate.
Yeah, whatever it is you folks have to, I
You
would
can do
appreciate that.
that.
Get rid of the board. Thank you.
Okay. Chris, would you mark that on that as well? And then, so if you just put a line out and highlight it, we'll put in the appropriate language. And so we'll bring that to the board for the board to look at that change. In October.
Good, good.
Okay, which one was that you're talking
That
about?
was policy 330, the second to last. line.
331.
I'm sorry, 331. Thank
Mhm.
you.
Second,
Use of personal vehicle for approved purposes is reimbursable at the rate per
Okay.
mile approved. Well, not approved by, but stated by, and Justin had
Right.
the right wording. What was that, Justin?
It's at the current federal reimbursement.
Thank
Right.
you so much.
Federal mileage. There's lots of federal
Okay.
reimbursement rates. We just need to be specific.
anything else on that from anybody?
No,
You
good,
good
good.
with that? Change, making that change?
Yes, sir.
You're good with that? All right. Next one, PSBA revisions. The trauma informed approach. I have some questions on this one, believe it or not. I think the wording on that, the PSBA is changing. Go down to delegation of responsibility. Said board policy, administrative regulations, procedures set forth in memorandum of understanding with law enforcement agencies having jurisdiction over school property. I'm okay with that, but our own security SRO officers need to be involved there also. Because with this, by that wording, they're taken right out of the loop.
Oh, we don't want that.
Right, our own security team on multiple spots on this whole policy. It says, everything says law enforcement agency that has jurisdiction over school property. That would be Mill Hall Police and State Police.
Yeah, depending on the
Our
school.
own security
Right.
officers need to be added to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And wherever PSBA, or when they review it, or the solicitor, however that wording has to be, but yeah, our folks,
Our folks have to be involved.
yeah, we take care of our folks.
And we have a lot of stuff coming up that is gonna round around about that.
So, so you're mentioning in, policy 146.1 in the delegation of responsibility where it says other, you would like us to put our, school resource officers.
Yes.
The whole kit and caboodle, whatever you
The-
call that group.
Where it says the procedure set forth in the memorandum of understanding with law enforcement agencies having jurisdiction over school property.
I'm lost. I'm not sure where you are on
What
that
page
one.
are you
Under
on?
delegation of responsibility on the very first page.
The very
First page, oh. First page?
Yes, PSBA changed this.
Are you on page 2?
No, I'm on page 1.
Oh,
May I look at your screen? Because what I see for that policy is very different.
Yeah.
Right here.
Oh, this is policy 218.
Right.
We're at 146.
146.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think we all just
I
went
know, I
off
was like,
planet
where
and
is it?
came back today. Did anybody
Well, in case
sleep?
you're wondering, we did find law enforcement in the other policy as well. But it was on page 4.
I don't think there's enough oxygen in this building. I want to monitor.
Like
The
I said,
CO2 levels are off the charts.
I've got.
I'm sorry, Chair Chris, go ahead.
That's all right. I didn't have anything written down for policy 146. I apologize for that.
Well, this is my only question, Chair
Yes,
Chris, is none of the boxes are checked again, and this is gonna put us in that weird
So we have,
zone.
so one of the things we're working on with policy committee moving forward is that we have, Chris has I think you have our recommendations, or Christine, do you still have the administrative regulation? I have.
all I have is just,
I think Chris all,
Yeah.
the blank.
Ah,
mark,
okay.
So he could
Yeah.
mark them up.
So let me get to
And I
that.
think in the agenda, it's all marked. This one is not marked, I'm sorry.
Yep.
This one we didn't have.
right,
Availability.
So Elizabeth, just so you know, this is the administrative recommendations to go
Okay.
to that policy. So I'll give that to Chris, and then.
yeah, cause I have nothing on it.
And then if you agree with that, I want you to mark up on yours. What
Okay,
you want us to mark and not mark. So then when it goes to the board, we will, everything that you have checked, will have checked, everything that you don't have checked will line out.
right,
And so that way, I'm working on eliminating that confusion that we're having going from policy
Right.
committee to the board.
That would be very helpful, Dr. Redmond,
Yes.
very helpful.
Would you like mine this way? Then you can see.
cause I don't see anything that you're recommending what we should
Right,
do.
because that one didn't get on the agenda. I'm
Sorry about my
that.
writing.
So here's so you can see all the ones that we have recommended
Okay,
marked on this. So if we want, we can push this policy back since you haven't had time to review the administrative recommendations.
all right,
If you'd like to do that, or we
can I keep this copy?
Of course.
And that would be very helpful. But now I do have a
We have a
I
question.
need it.
Yeah, we'll get a copy of it before, at the end of
Right.
the meeting, but yes, you can after that. Yes.
Okay, then we can go over that at a different time.
So we're
Okay,
gonna table
post-
that one for now.
Yes. So for right now, table policy 146-1.
Till next month.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, till next month.
Okay.
Okay, back to where I was at, policy 218.2. We're back to where we're adding in law enforcement, our own SRO needs to be put in there.
Yeah, I think where the confusion is, and we can clarify that because I think they write these policies and in effect that most school districts don't have their own law enforcement
Right.
agency,
You're
whereas we do. And so I think like if you go to any other school district, they have usually SROs that are employed by the local, you know what I mean? Like if Williamsport Police Department or whatever police department. So they write it as a general like that, whereas we are a local.
Absolutely, I see that. Yeah.
That's
But I think you can clarify and say, you know, the local law enforcement agency, which could include the school base.
including our own
Right,
SRO.
you could
for-
add, yeah, that stuff in there, because that makes sense, because they take and lock up the school, you know, property
Right.
based on whether, and then they turn it over to other agencies if they come into the investigation, so.
So would you
It's
do
a
me a
protocol
favor,
thing.
Chris, highlight that, and then
Yeah.
I'll give it to Randy, and Randy, you can. make
Yeah,
the
I'll
adjustment on
rewrite
line,
that,
and
just
then
make sure that
What the
they
board will
should be
see
included.
in October will be the one that has that extra part in there, to include our SROs, our locals.
Yeah, because we need to put our own folks in there.
Yeah, there's a couple spots there, I see. That we can change the verbiage a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
and
down further,
Christine,
guidelines.
you don't have me the second page of it, but it's the same thing on the last page of
Yeah. I
that,
just- I
okay?
saw that too.
Mhm. And then I just,
I've only got the front page of it. Oh,
It's
wait a
on the back.
minute, you have it printed on the back,
Yeah.
never mind.
It's like,
Chair Chris.
Yes, Elizabeth,
Okay, the second to last line,
what- on the back.
On the second
Uh,
page.
second page, yes, I'm so sorry, page 2 of 2.
yeah,
The second to line, in accordance with state law, the superintendent shall annually by July report all instances of terroristic threats to the Pennsylvania Department of Education on the required form.
yeah.
Now, I know as a school board member, I can go open up their site, go find it, go click on it, and then I read it. It would be very helpful if Dr. Redmond, would it be too much to ask? I mean, it also include the school board so we don't have to go and find that report every year.
Perhaps it makes sense to include that in the annual report.
So it is in the Act 44.
Right.
But if you, I mean, so I could draw attention to that in the meeting if you wanted to see specifically.
Yes, and that way it saves us, for any
Yeah.
board member that wants to track those numbers,
Right.
it's so much easier if it's just all presented at the same time. That'd be
These-
lovely.
I can give you, you know, from that perspective, for the most part, it'll have the number of incidents. It may not have the details to all of them because that drills down pretty deep into all of that. But I mean, the
A
data's there.
a general overview. In fact, if I
Well, we get that report every year.
Yeah, that's a state, I mean, that's why I come
Right.
to the executive.
Cause I
Safe to say.
remember when he did it last
Yeah,
year.
so I can do that and call out those data points for you.
would you mind if just consider, now I'm not speaking on behalf of the whole board, okay? But I know how hard you folks have been working and all the different steps. I really do know. And I think even if the numbers don't go where we all want them to go at times, just to consider together, that when you do the Safe to Say report to us, that, and you've done this in the past, last time you did, if you think of pre-COVID to current, you know, like a
Trend.
graph or a line, yeah, that would be so helpful.
Yep, I'll create some data trend charts for you.
That would be lovely. Thank you.
not a
So we
problem.
won't include that here. Okay,
Good?
super terrific.
All right. Next one, policy 227, controlled substance and paraphernalia. I really didn't see any big issues with what they're changing and what they're adding. The only question I had, and I'm only gonna ask this because I saw it happen one time in a school district out west. There was a kid that brought in a bag of oregano in a plastic baggie and was telling everybody, oh, this is my drug. And automatically the school administration got involved because it looks exactly like marijuana. When it came down to it, the parents got involved because the administration grabbed the kid, took it away, and it created a nightmare. Then the school got sued over it, believe it or not. Because they harassed that kid over a bag, it looked like it. In our policy here, I mean, it says a look-alike drug. I don't think we need to put that in there. I just wanted you to
I
be
think we
aware.
absolutely have to have that in there.
Okay,
Absolutely, we have to have that.
So I can
in
tell you, Chris, I had that same situation happen when I was building principal.
okay,
Brought a bag of oregano, told kids it was marijuana. So we followed the policy. We initially confiscated it,
right,
suspended the student, contacted the parents, but then when it came back that it was not, then we had the meeting, the reentry meeting, brought the student back,
Right.
and it went a different route.
well, I think there needs to be some kind of verbiage to cover something like that, because I would hate to see, just like you said, then the parent says you're harassing my kid. And,
But if our policy is clear and says that the student isn't allowed to represent whatever material as a controlled
I
substance.
see what you're saying.
okay,
We're already saying you can't do this. It's in our student policy.
So if you take it out-
Policy.
Yeah,
If the
Okay.
student's saying, hey, this is a drug, ha, 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 and it's not, you're not allowed to do that.
No, that's
all right.
a good
I
point.
didn't know that because I don't have the student handbook thing to see.
No,
That
that's a
was the
good-
only question I had on
Mhm.
that. So if we're good on that,
I think it's, yeah, as long as it's strong enough for them, it's strong enough for me.
let's go to 227 AR 0. There's a lot of questions on that. If you go to page 2, under controlled substances, include, number one says any controlled substance prohibited by federal or Pennsylvania law.
Mm.
So what do we do? Because I know it's on the books right now when Pennsylvania says marijuana is okay, but the feds still say, no, it's not.
So are you meaning like if a child their doctor has prescribed?
No, I'm talking about if Pennsylvania legalizes marijuana, but the feds still say, no, it's illegal.
It'll never be legal for
It's
someone under
prohibited on
18
school
though.
grounds.
That
It-
contradicts.
Yeah.
Regardless, it's prohibited on school grounds.
Yeah.
Even in states where
It's like-
recreational marijuana is allowed, it's treated like tobacco.
Beer.
It's not allowed on school grounds.
Yeah, it's like,
Okay,
Yeah.
just wanted
Yeah.
to
no, I see
clarify
what you're
that.
saying. I see that, Chris. That's, yeah.
And then, if you go to page 4. This is going to all wrap down. I mean, I have page 4, number 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So instead of everybody having to look at each one, I'll tell you my issues. The student is found to be in possession on page 4. About a quarter of the way down, student is found to be in possession or under the influence of a controlled substance. The immediate action is the building principal is notified. With that said, that should also be one of our SROs with the principal.
And law enforcement.
Yes. Number 2, the investigation. When you're going to search a locker or a vehicle, there should also be an SRO involved there.
Absolutely.
That covers us. Yes,
But I guess that there's a fine line there of,
Right.
search and
Probable-
seizure.
Probable cause or
probable
reasonable
cause, yeah,
suspicion.
so like as a school principal, I have a lot more leadway than an SRO does, and then there's also the question, if an SRO is present, are you violating their Miranda rights, and are they in custody of police?
Right.
Versus
Well, the
as an
police-
administrator, I can do my investigation and I can turn that over to law enforcement to.
Well,
Once it's-
our law enforcement
Yes.
needs to be involved in that to protect our administrators that are doing it.
Well,
They know
but at
the
same-
laws of it.
But at the same time, if we involve law enforcement too early, then,
Mhm.
and it were go to legal proceedings, it could be thrown out because we didn't follow the proper
Right.
due process. So the due process requirements for a school administrator is different than the due process requirements for law enforcement.
Mhm.
We have more latitude as school administrators to look at what a student has with them or in their locker, right? The due process regulations or bar is different for school administrators than for law enforcement. So if we involve law enforcement when we're doing, if we're trying to determine whether or not there was a violation, we're allowed to do that. Law enforcement can only do that. Their standard
certain-
is
Or
higher.
higher. We just have to have suspicion.
Right, so I
And
think what
So
you
our
should,
standards lower.
I think
for
we're
us to
both saying the
search.
same
Yes.
thing in a way. Because the way that I operated as a principal, and Justin may have done the same thing, I'd have a law enforcement officer near when I would do this, like if I had to investigate a backpack, right? I'd have an officer out in the office and I'd look through the backpack and then find something and then I'd pull him in. Because he wouldn't have the right to do such a thing based on the information that maybe was provided to me. So legally, he could get himself in trouble if he opened that backpack up, whereas I have more leeway to do that in a school setting. But he would be involved immediately as soon as the stuff was uncovered.
Yeah, once it
Mhm.
rises to reasonable suspicion,
Right.
right, which is the standard for law enforcement, then they can
Right.
get involved.
So
We
this
just
is
don't
all
wanna get
part
them
of your
in- I don't want
training.
them to get in trouble. I just don't want them involved too early that somebody gets bound up.
Wow.
I don't know if it would, because
It does.
if you go down,
There's case law, I'm sorry for interrupting, there's case law that pretty carefully defines what those standards are. And what I don't want to have happen is for us to work towards the removal of a student for really good reasons and for that to be thrown out because we
Didn't follow
Because
procedure.
because we involved law enforcement too
Sure.
early.
I understand. No, I
Well,
get it.
in there-
but-
if you go down to number 4, once again, it says you're gonna report controlled substances to law enforcement agency that has jurisdiction over the property. Our officers need to be involved there.
Sure, I think on number 4, that makes sense.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, number 4 makes sense.
And
I'm
I
with you on
still
number 4.
think under search and seizure, one of our guys should be there.
Well, again, I think that there's a level of involvement, but I don't want them too involved because I don't want them to get in trouble because they could face disciplinary actions
So,
if they're there too early, like based on the information between reasonable doubt, and probable cause, or reasonable
Yeah,
suspicion
suspicion,
and probable cause.
Yeah.
Like, we just gotta be careful because if they get involved with that right away, if they just grab it out of a principal's hand and say, oh, I'm just gonna look through it, that could put them in trouble so that the parents could go like, well, what happened? in the
They don't
process?
have to, you can do that,
Right.
but they
If
should be
somebody
there
present,
also.
though, is
I just
Yeah.
don't, right, like what I said is, I think if there's a way, and I think we should preach this, that when there's a situation like that, they're in close proximity, but not in the same room until we have it uncovered.
So
and that's-
my typical procedure would be, I would notify the SRO immediately, but have him wait, and I would grab either guidance counselor or second adult.
Right,
When
so
I
there
would
was
do the
2
search
people
to
in there.
protect myself, because then that way there is a defined line that a law officer was not present for a search, then it couldn't be deemed an
Crazy stuff.
illegal search.
Right,
it is
yeah.
crazy.
How could one get in trouble if they were just there watching you?
Because
search?
there's school, because the question comes up, if the police officer is there, and then is the student under the purview of the police officer? So are you violating their rights? Are they considered in custody at that point? So it just, the case law, it's very clear and it's much cleaner. I get
Alright.
what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah, we're not
but
disputing
school law
the
is much
fact that they
different
shouldn't
than-
be there. I'm not disputing the fact that they shouldn't be in close proximity to it, but I, to make sure we're following or dotting our
And
i's and
that's-
crossing our t's.
if I may share, Chris?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I really, really, really think I do. But what I'm doing now is because I know our safety and security from 5 years ago to how it's transformed to today. I mean, it's like a whole totally different. So be that as it may, I feel very confident that the checks and balances are in place, that the training that they all undergo is going to continue to improve. So I'm fine with, minus that one that you did catch, that
Well,
Dr. Z.
I've got more here to go.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
So under number 4, we need to put not just the law enforcement, the jurisdiction over the property, we need to put our officers in there also.
That's page 49
That's page
Yes.
of
4.
Number 4.
9,
Yeah,
And
okay?
it's number 4.
So what's the
Okay.
next one?
Now let's go on here. Number 5. The building principal will confiscate items and substances found which can be used as evidence. The building principal should not be doing that. The officer should be at that point, because in a legal court, there is a chain of custody. Who has it? It's locked up. If a principal takes it, puts it in his desk for even an hour, the lawyer's gonna take that and throw it out of court.
So there's, again, this is more established case law about this, and yes, you're absolutely right, the chain of custody is super important. That's part of why we
Yes.
go through pretty extensive training this was big when I was learning to be a principal, and even after that, the chain of custody training as part of the whole investigation thing was really prevalent. I'm confident that our administrators know about the chain of custody, and we can certainly work on reinforcing that. But there are times when if we are in an elementary school, for instance, and there's not one of our SRO officers present,
Oh, they're
I
in another
want
school.
our principals to have the latitude to
Right.
confiscate and hold on to things until it can be turned over to either the SRO or local law enforcement.
Okay,
I
so
would like to hear what our SROs say about that. We could table this, take it to a meeting, or can you call one of them and ask them to come
Well,
in? We can ask them.
I
questions.
think that you might be able to come to a resolution if you look at a building principal confiscate items or substances found when an SRO is not available to work on the situation, because I think, again, like they write these ARs based on the fact that there's
A
school
general-
districts that don't have an SRO
Yep,
available
it's a general
at that
order.
Right.
moment in time, so.
But we're different, so we've got to put that
So you
in
can,
here.
so I'm saying, so you could put building principals will confiscate items where substance is found. Unless there's an SRO available to take immediate control of them, so
Or
like,
until an SRO
Right.
is available to take custody,
whatever.
the
that
principal or
verbiage looks like.
designee shall.
But you have to be careful because if a principal is even willing to do that, and like I say, he puts it in his desk till an SRO gets there, that can actually get thrown out of court.
Yeah, I mean, it's-
So if I'm conducting a search though, and I'm doing the search, I'm going to be the person confiscating. the
And
item.
that's where you
So
stop and call an SRO.
So then when I
immediately.
confiscate
always
it,
gonna work.
I bag it,
That's just-
tag
that's
it,
reality.
date, sign, seal
Lock
it,
it.
take it to the SRO. And hand that.
I would
over.
I would like to hear what they say about that because they're the pros on that.
no, I mean, that's not a problem. I'm just fearful of. If we change some of that, but not add them in, we could hamstring. If Brett was at Liberty, I'm not saying that a kid at Liberty Curtin's gonna have something.
Can we ask, can you call one of them and ask them to come in quick?
Well,
I'm a little
that's two,
time bound
yeah.
right
Yeah,
now.
we have
So
another-
I'm
Well,
wondering if we can table this
then
one, we
let's
can
table it.
come back to it.
Let's table it.
Yeah,
Okay.
in the meantime, is this something you want to do at your safety and security meeting?
Well, that's why I said we could do that, or we could call an officer in here, but that's something
He's got stuff to do.
I want to hear what our guys have
Yeah.
to say
Yeah,
about that.
input, yeah, and they may say it's fine, but thank
I
you, that
mean,
was a real
we don't have
education.
an
I had,
SRO for a while. An SRO meeting, so. When is our next one?
15th of October.
Okay.
So
So
I
it
mean, I
wouldn't
get the
hurt.
information, I can send it to you once I talk with them or like whatever.
Let's table this till our meeting. That way
Okay.
they're here and we hear about it.
I think it's.
And this isn't, also, this is an administrative regulation, so we can move all of these others that we're not tabling and just hold off on the AR.
Right,
So like 227 can go forward, we'll hold back on.
right,
227 AR.
exactly.
That'd be-
I'm
that's a good
talking
idea.
about 227 AR.
that's great.
Yeah, that's fine.
Just want to make sure we're clear on that. We're gonna move 227, but not,
Right,
227 AR isn't approved by the board anyway. But I'm taking the advice from the policy committee to make appropriate changes.
right. Really not trying to drag it out.
Yeah, at least the target's on you for a change.
Yeah, it's all right. I got big shoulders. Policy 234, pregnant parenting and married students. I really don't have any issues with it. Is the Title IX coordinator that you're talking about gonna have training and all of
Yes.
this?
Yep,
Okay.
we're required to have the Title IX coordinator, has to have fairly significant training.
Okay.
Um,
You
I
good
just
with
had-
that, Elizabeth?
I just had one comment on page one. It's sort of to me, I think we can do a little better job on the language of the first sentence. When you go down to the last paragraph, and it starts on page one, where it says, the board directs the Title IX coordinator and district staff to make reasonable recommendations to board policies, not modifications, recommendations. Because that's opening up a whole can of worms that we don't want to go down.
What would be a modification such as like attendance policy? If someone was pregnant.
Well,
to
the
have
way
a-
this reads is it appears that someone could go into board docs
So,
and change policies without board approval.
so.
So recommendations, not modifications.
May I recommend something to
Sure.
some specific language so we can maybe just make that change and then move forward with this one? So do make reasonable recommendations to board policies, comma, and or modifications to administrative regulations and school rules as necessary.
Well, if you wanted to have control of modifying administrative regulations,
Which we do.
that's all, that's your ball of wax or, but as far as being able to go into board docs or do anything to policies, we have to make it very clear.
So does my language recommendation fit what you're asking?
I think, I mean, it's up to you. Do you think that is real clear that they can make recommendations to policy
How do you
changes?
how do you
So-
wanna reword it?
So the sentence would read, the board directs the Title IX coordinator, district staff to make reasonable recommendations to board policies and or modifications to administrative regulations and school rules as necessary.
Or not and or, because then it says, why don't you just do period? Make the first sentence just, the board directs the Title IX coordinator and district staff to make reasonable recommendations to board policies, period. Then you can,
Recommendations to board policy regarding what? That sentence doesn't really read.
right, what I'm
exactly
saying is somehow, just so the word modification and
Combination?
policies in the same sentences might be confusing to
I
someone in the
don't-
future.
I don't think that anybody except the board should be changing or modifying any policy.
But we're agreed on that. That's not, that's, I don't think that we're arguing that
No.
point. We're just trying to wordsmith this out.
Right, well, why don't
Okay.
you, do you folks want to figure out what words fit you the best and just keep it in red and then we'll just view it when
I mean, it's
it's,
basically saying that administration has the right to make accommodations.
It's not
Based
physically
on-
altering, like physically going in and redoing the policy. It's taking an existing policy and making a modification to accommodate a student under Title IX when you're reading that.
well, that's why right now it reads, and I know it's not on purpose, I know that, but I'm just saying, from a layman's point of view, reading it, it states they can make
Yes.
reasonable modifications to the board policy.
Okay, so how about this, right, so the underlying idea here is that there's a board policy that's written that may not specifically address a student who's pregnant. So what if we were to change the word modifications to reasonable interpretations of board policies?
Perfect,
Because I think that gets at the point.
That's
So
perfect.
we'll change reasonable modifications to reasonable interpretations of board policies and so forth.
Yes,
that's
that's
perfect.
fine.
We could turn this into a game show, couldn't we? But we can't have any prizes.
Because our next
Under $5.
policy, the 234 AR has the same.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Hit the dollars.
language.
Okay, so why don't we, we'll make that change on both the AR and the policy, and then move that forward to the board. meeting
That's a
in
great idea.
October.
Good, good, good. This is when the board and everyone works well together. Yay.
That's okay, are you said too?
So we'll just look at that the same language, change it there.
Okay, you folks put a lot of hard work into this, deeply appreciated, moving forward. And I did have a comment, Chair Chris,
Yeah, go ahead.
not, if, oh, I'm so sorry. So we're done with your set, right? Oh, no, I'm sorry, we have one more.
We just
Wait.
talked about the AR.
Yes,
Yeah, we
okay.
got some more to go yet.
Oh, we do?
No, that was the last one.
Oh,
on
it was the last
agenda.
one. I did just find that, this is just a clerical thing. I noticed on policy 610, none of the links work. It's no big deal, but I just wanted to put it out there. Policy 610, links are inactive.
Elizabeth, just going forward on this, it's not on the agenda, so I don't want to get too far into it, but maybe when you find these things.
Email them,
Just send them to Christine and to
paper
me,
trail. You're
because-
right, you're right,
Because then we don't necessarily have to take that up in policy committee. It's just a change we need to talk to PSBA about.
right. Okay, I got it. I will email this. In fact, right there, I will do it as soon as I get home.
Okay, and I had one more question. On the last page of the 234 AR. The last section on it says lactation space. The district will provide a space other than a bathroom, clean, shielded for view, da, 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 da.
Yeah, they have to.
Does this mean we're gonna have a mother with a brand new newborn child carrying that around in school?
Potentially.
Yeah, it's the way, this,
Could that not be
segregation
a
of,
huge,
well, that's something to deal with, hon, because, I'm sorry, that was inappropriate. What I'm saying is, segregating women, children, or young adults because they are pregnant or because they have a child is abominable to me personally. So however the district works this out with the laws, I'm not gonna ever discriminate against a,
I will not discriminate against anybody. I'm just wondering if that meant a student could be carrying her child with her through the school. Could that be a disruption or, I mean, I'm sure that's legal testy ground.
It, we work with individual circumstances, of course, so I can't make a blanket statement that it's
Right.
going to be a distraction or not. But we work with the individual circumstances to ensure the best possible.
at least,
Okay, that's what I just wanted to make sure that,
no, I appreciate you bringing it up, Chris, I do.
because I was
Because
just curious.
a lot of people don't understand certain things.
Right. All right, with that said, does anybody else have anything? Adjournment.
Thank you. I was supposed to say something to you and I forgot. Oh, here.